The moment Jasmine Carter grabbed the CEO's wrist, she knew three things. 1. The coffee in his hand contained enough poison to kill him in 3 hours. 2. The man who poisoned it was watching her right now. And 3. She had just signed her own death warrant. If you want to see how this ends, hit that subscribe button right now. You're not going to want to miss a single second of this. 8 board members froze. Damon Cross, the billionaire CEO of Crosstech Industries, went completely still. And Richard Sterling, the man who just spiked that coffee with ricin, smiled at her like a predator that had just cornered its prey. "Ms. Carter," Sterling's voice was silk over steel, "I think you're confused. Return to the kitchen, now." But Jasmine's fingers were locked around Damon's wrist, feeling his pulse hammer against her palm. She couldn't let go, because the note she'd slipped under his napkin 30 seconds ago said everything she couldn't say out loud. "Don't drink it, it's poisoned. Leave now." Damon's gray eyes locked onto hers. For 3 years, she'd been invisible to him. Just another face that poured his coffee and cleared his plates. But right now, in this moment, she was the only person in the room he could see. "Jasmine," he said quietly, using her name for the first time ever. "We need to talk. Now." He stood, still holding the poisoned coffee, still trusting her even though he had no reason to. And Richard Sterling's smile vanished. That was 6 hours ago. 6 hours since she saved a billionaire's life. 6 hours since she became the only witness to a conspiracy that reaches all the way to Beijing. 6 hours since she discovered that the real threat wasn't the obvious enemy, but the one person everyone trusted. 6 hours since she stopped being invisible and became the most valuable and most hunted woman in San Francisco. And drop a comment right now telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. New York, Miami, Los Angeles, Chicago. Let me know you're here. Now let me tell you how we got here. And trust me, the person behind this conspiracy isn't who you think it is. Let's rewind. 6 hours earlier, 6:47 a.m., Crosstech Industries Tower, downtown San Francisco. Jasmine Carter pushed her catering cart through the polished marble lobby, past the modern art installations worth more than her entire neighborhood, past the security guards who nodded without really seeing her, and into the private elevator that required a fingerprint she'd been granted 3 years ago when she'd started running the executive dining service. 28 years old, MBA from San Francisco State, half finished because the money ran out. Brilliant enough to recognize it, invisible enough to survive it. She'd learned a long time ago that being seen in rooms like these was dangerous. Her father had been seen once, spoke up about safety violations at the chemical plant in Oakland where he worked, Calchem Industries. 6 months later, he was dead. The company called it an accident. Jasmine called it what it was: murder. Thomas Carter had been a chemical engineer, brilliant, careful, methodical. He'd noticed discrepancies in the safety protocols, containers mislabeled, ventilation systems bypassed, workers getting sick with symptoms that didn't match their exposure logs. He documented everything, built an airtight case, submitted it to management with copies to OSHA. 3 days later, he collapsed at work. Acute poisoning. They said he'd mishandled chemicals, that it was user error, that a man who'd worked with hazardous materials for 15 years had suddenly forgotten basic safety procedures. The investigation was closed in 2 weeks. Calchem paid out a modest settlement, and Thomas Carter became just another statistic. Jasmine was 13, old enough to understand that her father had been murdered, old enough to know that no one cared, old enough to learn that being invisible was the only way to survive in a world where powerful people erased inconvenient truths. So she'd made herself into furniture. She served breakfast to people who negotiated $100 million deals over her shoulder, who discussed affairs while she poured orange juice, who built empires while she cleared plates. And she watched. She always watched. Because watching was how you survived. Watching was how you saw the truth that everyone else missed. This morning was different, though. This morning, the energy in the executive dining room felt wrong. The quarterly earnings call, the big one. Cross-Tech Industries was about to announce a breakthrough in AI technology that would revolutionize everything from autonomous vehicles to medical diagnostics. Stock price at an all-time high. Damon Cross, the 35-year-old self-made CEO who'd built this empire from a garage in Palo Alto, was about to become one of the 10 wealthiest people in America. The executive dining room was already buzzing when she arrived. 8 board members, all men, all wealthy enough to buy small countries. Jonathan Pierce from Goldman Sachs, David Chen from Sequoia Capital, Robert Morrison, who'd made his fortune in pharmaceuticals, all of them sharks in expensive suits, and Richard Sterling. 52 years old, silver-haired, Princeton-educated, face that belonged on a wealth management brochure. Sterling had been Damon's mentor since Damon aged out of foster care at 18. Found him working 3 jobs to save money for community college. Saw something in the angry, brilliant kid that no one else had seen. Paid for Stanford. Taught him how to code, how to pitch, how to think like a billionaire. Gave him the seed money for Cross-Tech. Was the best man at Damon's wedding before the divorce. The godfather Damon never had. Jasmine set up the breakfast spread with practiced efficiency. Smoked salmon from Pike Place Market in Seattle, flown in fresh this morning. Pastries from Tartine in Nob Hill, still warm. Fresh fruit cut into precise arrangements. Coffee from single-origin beans that cost $40 per pound. Roasted in small batches in Portland. She'd done this 1,000 times. Knew everyone's preferences without asking. Black coffee for Damon, 2 sugars, green tea for Chen, espresso for Morrison, orange juice, fresh squeezed, for Pierce. But something was off. Richard Sterling stood by the window, checking his phone. Once, twice, 3 times in as many minutes. His hands were shaking, not the tremor of age or caffeine, but the shake of adrenaline, of fear. His pupils were dilated, even in the bright morning light flooding through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He kept glancing at the door, waiting for something, or someone. Jasmine had seen that look before, in her father's face, the week before he died. The look of a man who'd made a choice he couldn't take back. When Damon walked in, the room shifted. That's what power did. Changed the air pressure. Made everyone stand a little straighter. He moved with the confidence of someone who'd built something from nothing and knew exactly what it was worth. Tailored navy suit, no tie, silver watch that was worth more than most people's cars, but understated enough that you had to know watches to recognize it. "Gentlemen," Damon said, his voice carrying easy authority, "let's make this quick. We go live with the announcement in 90 minutes. I want everyone aligned on messaging." He moved toward his usual seat at the head of the table, and Richard Sterling did something he'd never done in the 3 years Jasmine had been watching. He intercepted Damon's coffee order. "Let me get that for you," Sterling said, too loud, too eager. His voice had a brittle quality that didn't match his smile. "I had them prepare something special this morning. Premium matcha blend from Kyoto. You'll need the focus for today. Biggest day of your life, right?" Damon smiled, easy and trusting. "Thanks, Richard. You always know what I need." Jasmine watched from behind the coffee station, pouring orange juice for Pierce with mechanical precision. Watched Sterling move to the coffee service. Watched him glance around the room. Everyone was engaged in conversation, checking phones, reviewing notes. No one was paying attention to the mentor preparing coffee for his protege. No one except Jasmine. Sterling's hand went into his jacket pocket, came out with a small packet. Clear plastic, unlabeled, white powder inside, fine as confectioner's sugar. He held it low, shielded by his body. Glanced around one more time, then tore it open with shaking fingers. Jasmine's breath caught. Sterling tipped the powder into Damon's coffee. Not all of it. A careful measure. Maybe half. Then he stirred it with deliberate precision. 12 rotations clockwise. The powder dissolved without a trace. No residue, no color change. Nothing visible to the casual eye. He smiled, picked up the cup, walked it to Damon's seat, set it down like an offering. Her father's face flashed in her mind. His voice from 15 years ago. patient and careful as he taught her about the chemicals he worked with every day. Baby girl, you ever see something wrong, something that don't sit right, you speak up. You don't look away. Looking away is how people die. Looking away is how evil wins. But speaking up had gotten him killed. Sterling returned to his position by the window, checked his phone again. Jasmine saw it this time, saw the message on his screen before he turned it away. Package delivered? Her heart was hammering so hard she thought everyone could hear it. The powder, the careful measurement, the nervousness, the message. It all added up to one thing: poison. What would you have done? Would you risk everything to save a stranger? Or would you look away to save yourself? Drop your answer in the comments. Jasmine's hands moved before her brain could stop them. She reached into her apron pocket, found a cocktail napkin, found the pen she used to take orders. 5 seconds to write 8 words that would destroy her carefully constructed invisibility. Don't drink it. It's poisoned. Leave now. Her handwriting was shaky, the letters barely legible, but it was done. She folded the napkin once, twice, small enough to be discreet, large enough to be seen. She picked up a water glass, crystal, heavy, imported from somewhere in Europe, filled it from the filtered dispenser. Walked across the room on legs that didn't feel like her own. Every step felt like walking through water, through concrete, through the space between safety and suicide. She reached Damon's seat. He was talking to Pierce about projected earnings, about market response, about stock options and investor confidence. Words that meant nothing and everything, words that would be his last conversation if she didn't do this. She set the water glass down, the napkin tucked underneath, positioned so only Damon would see it when he reached for the glass. Then she turned to walk away, back to safety, back to invisibility, back to the life where she watched but never acted. His hand shot out and caught her wrist. Not brutal, but absolute. The grip of someone who was used to holding on to things. Used to not letting go until he understood exactly what he was holding. The entire room went quiet. 8 conversations died mid-sentence. 16 eyes turned to watch. "Who are you?" Damon Cross asked, his voice low enough that only she could hear, but his eyes, sharp and gray like a San Francisco winter sky, like steel, like storm clouds, weren't angry. They were calculating, analytical, like she was a problem he needed to solve, an equation that suddenly didn't balance. Sterling's face flickered through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, panic. Then that smile returned, brittle as glass, sharp as a knife. "Damon, is there a problem?" Sterling asked, his voice carefully casual. "Ms. Carter, did you forget something?" Damon didn't look at him, didn't acknowledge him. He was completely focused on Jasmine, his thumb pressing against her wrist, feeling her pulse race like a trapped bird's heartbeat. She could see him processing, see the brilliant mind that had built a billion-dollar company analyzing variables. Her fear, the note, Sterling's question, the coffee sitting untouched. "Ms. Carter," Damon said, still holding her wrist, his grip loosening slightly but not releasing. "I need you to review tomorrow's menu with me. There's been a change in dietary restrictions for our international guests. Right now, in my office." It wasn't a request. It was a command dressed as one. It was a lifeline thrown to someone drowning. Sterling started to protest. "Damon, we need to finalize the talking points. You can't just—" "I'll be back in 10 minutes. Damon cut him off, his voice leaving no room for argument. He stood, still holding Jasmine's wrist, and pulled her toward the private elevator. She saw Sterling's face as they walked away, saw the calculation there, the realization that something had gone wrong, that the invisible caterer had seen something she shouldn't have seen. She saw him reach for his phone. The elevator doors closed. Just the two of them in 8 feet of polished steel and mirrored glass. 43 floors up to the executive suite. 43 floors of silence so thick Jasmine could barely breathe. Damon released her wrist finally, stepped back, looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "I have security cameras in that room," he said quietly. I can pull the footage, see what you saw, but I'm giving you 10 seconds to tell me why I shouldn't drink that coffee and why I should trust you instead of a man who's been like a father to me for 17 years. The elevator climbed. 20 floors. 30. Jasmine's throat was so tight she could barely speak. He put something in your coffee, she said. White powder, from an unlabeled packet. He waited until no one was watching. He measured it carefully, and right after, he checked his phone. There was a message asking if the package was delivered. Damon's face remained neutral, but his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That's not proof, he said. That's observation. White powder could be anything. Matcha, collagen supplement, protein powder. Sterling's been into wellness lately. Then why did his hands shake? Jasmine countered, finding her voice. Why did he check his phone 4 times in 3 minutes before you arrived? Why did he intercept your coffee order for the first time ever? Why did he look relieved when you took the cup? The elevator dinged. 43rd floor. Executive suite. When the doors opened, Damon didn't let go of her completely. His hand moved to the small of her back, guiding her out. To anyone watching the security feeds, it would look professional, courteous. But Jasmine felt the tension in his touch, the coiled readiness. He pulled her into an office that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the San Francisco Bay. Golden Gate Bridge in the distance, half hidden in morning fog. Minimalist furniture that probably costs more than her car, if she'd had a car. A desk made from a single slab of California walnut. Art on the walls that might have been originals, though Jasmine wouldn't know. He closed the door, locked it, then turned to face her. You have 60 seconds, he said. Tell me everything. And if you're wrong, you're fired. If you're right, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. So Jasmine Carter, invisible caterer, did something she'd never done before. She told the whole truth. She told him about her father, about Cal-Chem Industries, about the safety violations and the documentation and the suspicious death, about learning that speaking up could get you killed, about spending 15 years watching people in power, learning their tells, their patterns, their lies. She told him about Sterling's behavior, the shaking hands that spoke of adrenaline, not age, the dilated pupils that meant fight-or-flight response, the obsessive phone checking that signaled communication with someone, the unlabeled packet hidden in an expensive suit pocket, the too careful measurement that spoke of precise dosing, the desperate eagerness in his voice when he offered the coffee. And she told him about the look on Sterling's face, the look of a man who'd crossed a line and was waiting to see if he'd gotten away with it. Damon listened without interrupting. When she finished, he walked to his desk, picked up his phone, made a call. Martinez, I need you in my office. Bring a field testing kit. Chemical analysis, now. He hung up, looked at her. If you're wrong, you're fired and possibly arrested for making false accusations against a board member. If you're right, if I'm right, someone just tried to murder you, Jasmine finished. Why? His question wasn't about the murder. It was about her choice. Why risk everything? You could have looked away, should have looked away. It's safer, smarter. You owe me nothing. And there it was, the question she'd been asking herself for 15 years. My father died because people looked away, Jasmine said quietly, because people with power decided that workers were expendable, that profit mattered more than safety, that one man's life wasn't worth the inconvenience of doing the right thing. She met his eyes. I was 13. I watched them bury him, watched them lie about what happened, watched them get away with it, because no one with power cared enough to look. And you think I'm different? Damon asked. Not accusatory, genuinely curious. I think you built this company by seeing things other people missed, Jasmine said, by paying attention to details, by trusting your instincts. So trust them now. Pull the security footage, test the coffee, and if I'm wrong, I'll leave and you'll never see me again. A knock at the door. Damon unlocked it. A man entered, late 30s, military bearing, sharp eyes that swept the room and cataloged everything in 2 seconds. Dark suit, earpiece. The careful posture of someone trained to use violence efficiently. Carlos Martinez, Damon introduced. Head of security. Carlos, this is Ms. Carter. She's made a serious allegation. I need you to retrieve the coffee cup from my seat in the executive dining room. Discreetly, without alerting anyone, especially Richard Sterling. Bring it here for testing. Martinez looked at Jasmine. Something flickered in his eyes. Curiosity, maybe, or calculation. What exactly are we testing for? Martinez asked. Poison, Damon said simply. Martinez's expression didn't change. I'll be back in 5 minutes. While they waited, Damon asked the question that changed everything. What else have you noticed? Jasmine blinked. What? You said you watch people, that you've been watching for 3 years. What else have you seen? About Sterling. About anyone. So Jasmine opened the floodgates, told him about observations she'd filed away without realizing she was building a case. Sterling meeting with a woman in the parking garage. Level B3. 3 times over 6 months. Always Tuesday mornings at 7:15 a.m. Always the same black Mercedes with diplomatic plates. The woman was Asian, late 30s, expensive clothes, moved with the confidence of someone used to authority. They never spoke long, just an envelope exchanged. Always from Sterling to the woman. Sterling taking calls during lunch in Mandarin. Jasmine's Mandarin was basic. She'd taken 2 years in college, but she'd caught enough to know the calls weren't about business deals. They were about timelines, deliverables, transfers. Sterling speaking a language he wasn't supposed to speak fluently about things that sounded nothing like the public face of cross-tech industries. Documents left accidentally visible on his desk when Jasmine came to clear lunch plates. Financial projections that didn't match the ones discussed in board meetings. Project timelines that were months ahead of public announcements. Technical specifications for the AI breakthrough that was supposed to be locked in a secure server. Meetings with board members that happened off calendar. Quick conversations in the parking garage, in the stairwells, anywhere security cameras didn't cover quite as well. With each detail, Damon's face grew colder, harder. Martinez returned carrying a sealed evidence bag with Damon's coffee cup inside. He set up a portable testing kit on the desk. Pulled on latex gloves, extracted a sample of the coffee, added reagents, waited. The silence was suffocating. 3 minutes later, the test strip turned dark purple, almost black. Martinez looked up, his face grim. Ricin, he said simply. Enough to kill 10 men. Symptoms would have started in 2 to 3 hours. Nausea, vomiting, internal bleeding. By 6 hours, multi-organ failure. By the time anyone thought to test for poison, it would have been metabolized enough to miss on standard tox screens. Would have looked like a heart attack. Natural causes, a tragedy on the biggest day of cross-tech's history. The room went silent, the kind of silence that comes before explosions, before buildings collapse, before worlds end. Damon stood at the window, looking out at the city he'd conquered, at the empire he'd built from nothing. At the future someone had just tried to poison. He was like a father to me, Damon said quietly, his voice empty of everything except a profound, devastating betrayal. When I aged out of foster care, I had nothing. No family, no money, no prospects, just a high school diploma and rage. He found me working 3 jobs, sleeping in my car, saving every dollar for community college. He saw something in me, gave me a chance, paid for Stanford, taught me everything. His hand curled into a fist against the glass. Everything. How to code, how to pitch, how to think strategically, how to trust people, how to build something that mattered. He turned and Jasmine saw something break in him that she didn't think could be fixed. He taught me about trust, Damon repeated, the irony cutting like broken glass. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, do me a favor and hit that like button. And subscribe if you haven't already, because this story is about to take a turn nobody sees coming. What do you think Sterling's real motive is? Corporate greed or something bigger? Tell me in the comments. Martinez spoke first, his voice professional but urgent. Sir, Miss Carter can't go home. If Sterling's smart, and he is, he already knows she saw something. He saw you leave with her, saw you take the coffee with you. He's either panicking or planning. Either way, she's the only witness who can identify his behavior, testify to the pattern. That makes her a liability. Jasmine's blood went cold. What are you saying? I'm saying... Damon turned from the window, and the man looking at her now wasn't the CEO from the news. He was something harder, more dangerous. That you just became the most valuable and most endangered person in San Francisco. You can identify him. You can testify. And in my world, witnesses don't survive unless someone very powerful protects them. I'm a caterer, Jasmine whispered, but even she didn't believe it anymore. You're a witness to attempted murder and corporate espionage, Damon corrected, and you're about to help me understand exactly how deep this goes. Over the next 90 minutes, the conspiracy unraveled like a thread pulled from expensive fabric, revealing the rot underneath. Martinez pulled security footage. There was Sterling with the woman in the Mercedes. The timestamps matched Jasmine's observations exactly. Martinez ran the diplomatic plates, registered to the Chinese consulate. A few more searches revealed the woman's identity. Lin Zhao, deputy trade minister, officially in the U.S. on a cultural exchange program. Unofficially, head of industrial espionage for the Ministry of State Security. They pulled Sterling's communications. He'd been careful, but not careful enough. Encrypted emails sent from his personal device on cross-text guest Wi-Fi. Messages routed through VPNs and proxy servers. But the metadata was there. The patterns, communications with shell companies in the Cayman Islands, wire transfers to numbered accounts, a digital paper trail that led straight to Beijing. The documents Jasmine had seen weren't accidents. They were photographs. Sterling had been documenting cross-text AI breakthrough for 8 months. Every innovation, every breakthrough, every line of proprietary code. Sending it all to Lin Zhao, who sent it to Beijing, where Chinese tech companies were building identical systems. But it was worse than corporate espionage. It was treason. The AI system, Damon said, his voice hollow. It's not just for autonomous vehicles or medical diagnostics. The Defense Department contracted us 6 months ago. Adaptive battlefield intelligence, drone coordination, real-time threat analysis. If China has our code, they have access to U.S. military AI before we've even deployed it. Martinez swore quietly. How much did he sell? Everything, Damon said, scrolling through the evidence. 8 months of data. $300 million wired to his accounts. He was set to retire to Argentina next month. Jasmine was scrolling through her phone, through the Notes app where she kept detailed logs of every catering shift. Every conversation overheard, every observation filed away. He's not done, she said suddenly. Both men looked at her. The poisoning was personal, quiet, just you. But there's more. She pulled up her notes from 2 weeks ago. Facilities meeting. Sterling requested a private conference room for today's board meeting. Said the main boardroom's AV system was being upgraded for the earnings announcement. But I saw the maintenance logs yesterday when I was checking the kitchen equipment schedule. There's no upgrade scheduled. Martinez was already typing, pulling up building schematics. Which conference room? The Presidio room, 20th floor. Martinez's face went white as he pulled up the mechanical systems. Sir, that room just had new HVAC installed last week. Independent system, not connected to the building's main climate control. The work order was approved by... He stopped, stared at the screen. Approved by who? Damon demanded. By me, Martinez said quietly. Sterling brought me the approval request, said it was for improved air quality during long meetings. I signed off without questioning it. The implication hung in the air like poison gas. He's going to kill all of them, Jasmine said, the pieces falling into place with horrible clarity. The board meeting, all 8 members, gas leak, tragic accident during the most important day of the company's history, and Sterling, who'd conveniently step out at just the right moment, becomes the sole survivor. The grieving acting CEO who shepherds Crosstech through tragedy. and sells it to China while everyone's distracted by the funerals. Damon finished. Martinez was already moving. I'll evacuate the building. Call SWAT, FBI. We lock this down now. No, Jasmine said. Both men stopped, looked at her. If you evacuate, he'll know you're onto him. He'll trigger it early or run. You need to catch him in the act. You need proof that holds up in court. You need him with his finger on the button. Damon studied her. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting, Jasmine said, her voice steadier than she felt, that I'm still invisible. He saw me leave with you, but he thinks you dismissed me. Sent me back to the kitchen. I can access that conference room through the service corridor. I can get close enough to see what he's planning. To document it. Absolutely not, Damon said immediately. You're not trained for field work. If something goes wrong, 8 people die, Jasmine interrupted, and Sterling walks away, and China gets your AI system. And my father's death meant nothing because I looked away when it mattered. Your father's death isn't your fault, Damon said. But this would be, Jasmine replied. I can do this. I've been invisible for 3 years. Let me be invisible one more time. Martinez looked at Damon. Some silent communication passed between them. We'd be right outside, Martinez said. 30 seconds away. Full tactical team. And she'd have a panic button. Damon's jaw worked. This is insane. So is building a billion-dollar company in a garage, Jasmine said. You took that risk. Let me take mine. Something shifted in Damon's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition of someone who understood what it meant to bet everything on a single moment, on a single choice. 22 minutes, Martinez said, checking his watch. The board meeting starts in 22 minutes. 17 minutes later, Jasmine Carter pushed a catering cart through the service corridor toward the Presidio room. She wore her uniform, carried fresh coffee and pastries, had a micro camera clipped to her name tag, and a panic button disguised as a pen in her apron pocket. Looked exactly like what she was supposed to be, invisible. Damon's voice crackled in the nearly invisible earpiece Martinez had fitted. Jasmine, we're in position. Stairwell B, 30 seconds away. If anything feels wrong, anything at all, you hit that button. Understood? Understood, she whispered. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was hammering so hard she could feel it in her teeth. But she kept moving forward, one step, then another, toward the room where 8 people were about to die if she didn't do this. She pushed open the service door. The Presidio room looked like every other executive conference room. Long polished table, leather chairs, screens on the walls, windows overlooking the city. 8 board members already seated, checking phones, reviewing documents, discussing pre-market trading numbers. Richard Sterling sat at the head of the table, calm and composed, his phone face down in front of him, his hands no longer shaking. The nervous energy from this morning gone, replaced by an eerie stillness. He saw her. For just a second, his composure slipped. Surprise flashed across his face, then calculation, then that smile returned. Ms. Carter, he said smoothly, how thoughtful. Refreshments before we begin. Jasmine moved around the table, pouring coffee with hands that betrayed nothing. But she was watching, always watching. Sterling's left hand resting on the table beside his phone, his right hand hidden below the table edge, his eyes tracking her movement with the focus of a predator watching prey that had wandered too close. She poured coffee for Morrison, for Pierce, for Chen, professional, efficient, invisible, and she watched Sterling's phone. The screen lit up with a notification. She caught it for half a second before Sterling moved his hand to cover it, but half a second was enough. HVAC override, armed, engage? Damon's voice in her ear. Jasmine, we're moving in. 30 seconds, just stay calm. Don't let him know you saw anything. But she couldn't look away from Sterling's hand, from the thumb hovering over his phone screen, from the button that would kill everyone in this room. 20 seconds. Sterling's thumb moved closer to the screen. 15 seconds. She could see it in his eyes now. The decision made. The point of no return crossed. 10 seconds. Too long. Too far. The door was 30 feet away. The tactical team was fast, but not fast enough. Not if he pressed that button in the next 5 seconds. Jasmine did the only thing she could think of. She tripped. The entire tray of coffee, 8 cups, scalding hot, ceramic and metal, went directly onto Sterling's lap and his phone. He jumped up with a shout, coffee soaking through his expensive suit, burning his hands. His phone, drenched in liquid, sparked once and went dark as it hit the floor. "Oh my God," Jasmine gasped, grabbing napkins, making a show of helping. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened." She dropped to her knees, scrambling for his phone. Saw the screen, cracked but still partially visible. Saw the app still open, the command waiting. "Mr. Sterling," she said, loud enough for the entire room to hear, holding up the phone. "What is this HVAC override app?" The conference room door exploded inward. Not Damon, not Martinez, not the tactical team. FBI, real FBI. 4 agents in tactical gear with the letters blazing across their vests. Weapons drawn, professional, efficient, overwhelming. And behind them, Damon Cross, looking at Jasmine with something like awe. Sterling lunged for the phone. The nearest FBI agent caught his arm, twisted it behind his back, drove him to his knees with practiced efficiency. "Richard Sterling, you're under arrest for attempted murder, corporate espionage, and conspiracy to commit treason." The room erupted. Board members shouting questions. Morrison on his phone, Chen backing toward the wall, Pierce demanding explanations. And Damon walked straight to Jasmine, who was still on her knees, still holding Sterling's phone, still shaking from adrenaline and fear, and the realization that she just saved 8 lives. He reached down, pulled her to her feet, took the phone from her hands. "You did it," he said quietly, just for her. "You brilliant, insane, brave woman. You did it." But then Martinez appeared in the doorway. His face was wrong. His posture was wrong. And the gun in his hand was pointed directly at Damon. Actually," Martinez said, his voice completely different now. Colder, harder, empty of the professional courtesy he'd shown all morning. "She didn't." The FBI agents turned, weapons tracking to Martinez. But they didn't fire. Couldn't fire. Because Martinez had moved behind Jasmine, his arm locked around her throat, his gun pressed against her temple. "Everyone stay exactly where you are," Martinez said calmly, "or I paint the walls with her brain." Sterling, still on his knees, looked up. Confusion and then understanding dawned on his face. "You. It was you all along." "Give the man a prize," Martinez said. "Though it won't do you much good where you're going, Richard." Damon's face had gone absolutely still, absolutely cold. "Carlos, let her go." "Can't do that, boss." Martinez's voice was almost friendly, conversational. "She's too smart, figured out too much, saw things she wasn't supposed to see." "What are you talking about?" Damon's voice was ice over rage. "Sterling poisoned the coffee. Sterling set up the gas. Sterling's a useful idiot," Martinez interrupted. "Been one for 8 months. You think a Princeton-educated finance guy suddenly becomes a master spy? Please, I fed him to you. Made him obvious. Made him sloppy. Every meeting with Lin Zhao, I made sure happened where cameras could catch it. Every document he accidentally left visible, I put there. Every encrypted email I drafted." Jasmine's mind was racing even as Martinez's arm tightened around her throat. "The HVAC override? You approved the installation." "Very good," Martinez said. "I approve everything security-related. Sterling had no idea what was really being installed. Thought it was just air quality improvement. Didn't know about the gas canisters hidden in the ceiling. Didn't know the override app on his phone was accessing a system I control." "Why?" Damon demanded. "I trusted you. I paid you." "You paid me $300,000 a year," Martinez said. "China's paying me $60 million. Cayman Islands account. Already transferred. Already secured. By the time anyone figures out the banking trail, I'll be somewhere without extradition." "You were going to kill everyone," Jasmine said, her voice strained against his arm. "Sterling included." "Sterling especially," Martinez agreed. "The perfect fall guy. Kills his mentor, kills the board, then gets caught and confesses to working for China. A desperate suicide. a signed confession that I've already prepared in his handwriting. The only problem was our CEO here surviving, but the poison would have handled that. And by the time anyone realized there was a deeper conspiracy, I'd be gone. One of the FBI agents shifted. Martinez pressed the gun harder against Jasmine's head. "Don't," he said softly. "I've been trained in close quarters combat by the best military in the world. I will kill her before any of you can blink. And then I'll kill at least 3 of you before you take me down. So everyone stays very, very still." "You won't make it out of this building," Damon said. "I don't need to make it out of the building," Martinez replied. "I just need to make it to the parking garage. Level B3, my car's already running. Diplomatic plates, same as Lin Zhao's Mercedes. Once I'm in that car, I have immunity. Chinese consulate vehicle. You can't touch me without creating an international incident." "You're not Chinese diplomatic staff," an FBI agent said. "No, but the paperwork says I am. Cultural attaché. Issued 3 months ago through proper channels. Very official, very legal. I'll be on a plane to Beijing in 6 hours." Jasmine felt his body shift, felt him preparing to move, felt the gun press harder against her skull. "Here's what's going to happen," Martinez said. "Ms. Carter and I are going to walk to the stairwell. Anyone follows, she dies. Anyone tries to stop me in the garage, she dies. When I'm safely in the diplomatic vehicle, I'll let her go. My word on that." "Your word means nothing," Damon said, his voice shaking with barely controlled fury. "Maybe not," Martinez agreed, "but it's the only chance she has." He started backing toward the door, dragging Jasmine with him. She could feel his heartbeat through his chest pressed against her back. Steady, calm, professional. He'd done this before. Maybe not exactly this, but something like it. The FBI agents parted. They had no choice. Not with a hostage. Not with a gun to her head. Sterling was shouting something. The board members were frozen. Damon was moving forward, his face desperate for the first time since Jasmine had met him. And Jasmine realized 3 things simultaneously. 1. Martinez was going to kill her the moment they reached the garage. She was a witness, a liability, and he was too smart to leave witnesses. 2. He'd done this before. Moved hostages, controlled situations, killed people efficiently. He was ex-military, special forces probably. This was his job. And 3, her father's voice in her head. Not the lesson about speaking up, the other lesson, the one he'd taught her when she was 8 and wanted to take martial arts classes. "Baby girl, fighting someone bigger and stronger is stupid. But if you have no choice, you don't fight fair. You go for the vulnerable points. Eyes, throat, instep, groin, and you don't hesitate." Martinez's arm was across her throat, his gun hand extended, holding the weapon against her temple. Professional hostage position, textbook. But his weight was balanced for movement, not for resistance from his hostage, not from someone he thought was helpless. Jasmine went completely limp, dead weight, sudden, unexpected. Martinez's grip slipped for half a second as her full body weight dropped. His gun hand moved a fraction of an inch away from her temple as he tried to compensate. Jasmine drove her elbow backward into his groin with every ounce of strength she had. He grunted. His grip loosened. She dropped to the floor. And Damon Cross, who'd built a billion-dollar empire on seeing opportunities others missed, crossed 15 feet faster than should have been possible and hit Martinez like a freight train. They went down in a tangle of limbs and violence. The gun skittered across the floor. FBI agents swarmed. In 3 seconds, Martinez was face down with his hands zip-tied behind his back. Jasmine sat on the floor, gasping, her throat burning where Martinez's arm had been. Damon dropped to his knees beside her. "Are you hurt?" His hands were shaking as they checked her for injuries. "Did he hurt you?" "I'm okay," she managed. "I'm okay." "You dropped," he said, something like wonder in his voice. "You just dropped. Where did you learn?" "My dad," she whispered. "He taught me that." Damon pulled her into his arms, held her like she was the most valuable thing in the world, like he couldn't bear to let go. "You saved my life," he said into her hair. "Again. You saved everyone. Again." Sterling was being led away in handcuffs, still shouting that he was set up, that he didn't know, that it wasn't his fault. Martinez was silent as they hauled him to his feet, but before they took him away, he looked at Jasmine. "You're good," he said simply. "Better than you should be. Better than you know. That's why you were always going to be a problem." Then he was gone. The FBI found everything. Martinez's offshore accounts, communications with Chinese intelligence dating back 2 years, evidence that he'd been running Sterling like a puppet from the beginning, evidence of 17 other corporate espionage operations across 5 countries, evidence that he'd killed before 3 whistleblowers in other companies, all made to look like accidents or suicides. They found the gas canisters in the ceiling of the Presidio room, military grade, enough to kill everyone in the room in under 90 seconds. They found Sterling's confession already typed and ready to be discovered. Found the dosage calculations for the ricin. Found the timeline Martinez had planned down to the minute. But what they didn't find was Lin Zhao. The Chinese deputy trade minister had diplomatic immunity. She was expelled from the country within 24 hours. Beijing denied everything, called it a rogue operation, disavowed Martinez completely. Crosstech stock didn't crash. It soared. The board, grateful to be alive, gave Damon complete control. The Defense Department, impressed by how he'd handled the crisis, accelerated their contracts. And 3 days later, Jasmine Carter stood in Damon Cross's office, still trying to process that she was alive. The city sparkled below. The Bay Bridge glittered with afternoon light. Everything looked the same, but nothing was. "You saved my life," Damon said. He was standing at the window looking out at his empire. "Then you saved my company. Then you identified a spy in my inner circle. Then you saved yourself when I couldn't protect you. What do you want?" Jasmine had thought about this, about what came next, about who she wanted to be. "I want to finish my MBA," she said. "I want to never be invisible again. And I want to make sure this never happens to anyone else, that no one else's father dies because they spoke up, that no one else gets silenced because they saw the truth." Damon turned, looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Good," he said, "because I have a proposal." He slid a folder across his desk. She opened it. Full scholarship to Stanford, MBA program, starting next semester, plus a job offer. Vice President of Strategic Operations and Corporate Security. Starting salary, $400,000. Equity, 1% of Crosstech. Title, Chief Security Officer after MBA completion. Jasmine stared at the numbers, at the title, at the opportunity that shouldn't exist but somehow did. "I'm a caterer with half an MBA," she said. "You're a strategist who sees patterns no one else can see," Damon corrected. "You're brilliant, observant, and brave enough to bet everything on being right. You identified a threat my entire security apparatus missed. You saved 8 lives. You took down an international spy. That's not a caterer, Jasmine. That's exactly who I need building my security from the ground up. Not working for me, working with me." He walked around the desk, stood in front of her. "I trusted the wrong person," he said quietly. "I missed the threat closest to me because I was looking in the wrong direction. I can't afford to make that mistake again. And I can't afford to let someone with your skills slip away." "Why do you trust me?" Jasmine asked. "You barely know me." "I trust you because you risked everything for nothing," Damon said. "No reward, no guarantee, just because it was right. That kind of integrity can't be faked, can't be bought, and it's exactly what I need." He held out his hand, not a command, an offer. "Help me build something that matters," he said. "Help me make sure no one else's father dies for telling the truth." Jasmine looked at his hand, at the man who'd been a stranger 5 days ago, at the opportunity that felt impossible but somehow wasn't. She thought about her father, about Thomas Carter, who died because he refused to look away. She took Damon's hand. "Partners," she said. "Partners," he agreed. 6 months later, Jasmine Carter walked into a board meeting in a tailored suit that actually fit, carrying a presentation she'd built herself on the new security protocols that would revolutionize how Crosstech protected its innovations. facial recognition, behavioral analysis, pattern identification. Systems that would make it impossible for another Martinez to hide in plain sight. Damon sat at the head of the table, watching her command the room like she'd been born to it, watching 8 board members, including 3 new ones, hang on every word, watching her transform from the invisible woman who'd poured their coffee to the executive who held their future in her hands. After the meeting, he caught up to her in the hallway. "VP Carter," he said, that almost smile playing at his lips. "You just made our head of IT cry. Impressive." Jasmine touched the slim gold bracelet on her wrist. His gift, given 3 months ago. Not a collar, not ownership. A reminder that she'd chosen this, that she chose it every day. "He left his password on a sticky note," she said, "in a secure facility, under his keyboard. He's lucky crying is all he's doing. Good thing you're unforgettable now." They walked out of the building together, side by side. Equals, partners, visible. That was 6 months ago. The note that said, "Don't drink it, it's poisoned," saved his life. But figuring out that the protector was the real threat, that saved them both. She's no longer the woman who blends into the background. She's the woman who sees everything, questions everyone, and changed everything. And every single day she chooses to stay visible. Her father would be proud. Did you catch the twist? Did you suspect Martinez before the reveal? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this story kept you glued to your screen, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories with twists you won't see coming. What kind of story should I tell next? A revenge story? A redemption arc? Another corporate thriller? Let me know. Thanks for watching, and remember, the most dangerous person in the room is always the one you trust the most.